Hey, what's up guys? This is Sass again. And I've had several requests from my subscribers to know a little bit more about me, where I come from, and how I actually met my wife. So, for starters, both of my parents were educators, so of course education quite naturally was important in my family. I have both a bachelor's and a master's degree. I have an MBA. I'm self-employed, where I'm a licensed insurance broker and agency owner in my hometown of Charleston, South Carolina. And that's how I actually met my wife. One of my clients actually referred her to me for auto and homeowners insurance. So she wound up calling me one day, and I immediately detected that Filipino accent. So I wasn't listening to half of the stuff she was saying, but of course, I was intrigued by her accent alone. So I wound up calling my client back and just inquiring a little bit more about her. So, and he told me, he said, man, Sass, let me tell you, he said, if you ever taste that girl cooking, man, you will fall in love with that girl. And I was like, yeah, right, man. I said, whatever. Well, I guess you've heard the saying that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So I guess it's without saying that I ended up tasting her cooking, and the rest is history. Go figure. Okay. Charleston, South Carolina, my hometown, is a historical city for many reasons. I mean, there are too many to name. So why don't I take you on a little tour and let me show you around and give you a little history. But before I do that, I want to give a shout out to Renata Pereira, who did an excellent job researching Charleston. I want to share some portions of her video and what she found.
So, Charleston, let me begin from the beginning. Charleston was founded by English settlers in 1670 as Charlestown. Actually, they landed a few miles from here and then relocated to this area. And the name was to honor King Charles II. At the time, he was the king of Scotland, England, and Ireland. And just like in Europe, there was a wall here protecting the city. Actually, Charleston was more than just a walled city. It was like a fortified city with drawbridges, bastions, and everything that you'd expect in a medieval castle. They needed to protect the city against the Spanish, the French, the pirates, the Indians. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the wall is gone. It was demolished right after the American Revolution, the War for Independence. The rest is buried underground, and every once in a while someone finds a little piece of it in private properties. The only visible part that remains is this one right here.
We're touching something that is 300 years old.
How does it feel?
Cold.
Oh, not my hand! This was the only British walled city built in North America and the first permanent European settlement in the United States.
Easy, easy. Just crossing the street.
Very close to the wall, you can see some of the oldest and prettiest houses in Charleston. And some of them might even have seen a little bit of the fortification because they date back to the 18th century. This is known as Rainbow Row. It's a sequence of 13 colorful historic houses, actually the longest cluster of Georgian row houses in the entire country.
Then have information like this on the wall. You can learn more about them.
The wall would pass right here. The waterfront ran along this street. Not the case anymore. Now it's all the way over there. Cannot even see from here. Note the architecture, how these houses are different from those typical southern homes, you know, with a large porch. Those came later. And talking about historic buildings, look at this. This is the Tavern, the oldest liquor store in America.
And the door handle here, it says Coca-Cola.
It was a sailor's tavern.
Okay.
At 1600s, it was just with single stills.
Okay. Guess what year they opened?
1686.
Oh, you're so smart. It says right here. Yes.
Right there.
But you know, they arrived here in 1670. So So it took them 16 years to have a liquor store here in America. A long time for the British, maybe.
Oh, there's liquor coming through the ports.
There was. They just didn't have the store.
Trust me.
Too much time for the English.
Maybe.
They like their beer, huh?
Now we're entering the French Quarter, a very charming area within the original fortified city. But why is this known as the French Quarter? It's because of the historical concentration of French merchants here. The name is relatively new though, from 1973. Today you find here many shops, art galleries, and restaurants. When you come here to the historic center of Charleston, without much plan, just to walk around, you'll probably already have a really good time because everything is so beautiful. And you're gonna enjoy just strolling around and seeing the buildings. Many even have a front sign explaining a little bit of the history. You see this bus, Dash? This bus is for free. There are 3 lines circulating here downtown. As we cross the French Quarter, I'm going to highlight a few places. The first is this building just across the street from the tavern. The tavern is right there. This is the Old Exchange and Provost Dungeon. This was the last British building built on US soil. The construction finished in 1771, just a few years before the Revolutionary War. This is a place that on normal days I'd certainly go visit, but with the current situation we prefer to stay outdoors and only go indoors for very short periods of time. And here I'm sure I could easily spend way more than an hour. And that's because so much has happened in this building. The dungeon was a British prison during the American Revolution. Then with the independence, this is one of the places where the new constitution was debated and approved. It's actually one of the only 4 remaining structures in the entire country where the constitution was originally ratified. More recently, a bigger portion of the old wall was found underneath the building, and you can see it. It also has a sad history. This is the site of many public slave auctions. Charleston was one of the biggest hubs for slave trade in the country. 40 or 50% of Africans brought to North America came through Charleston. When Charleston prohibited the auction of slaves in public places, what happened? People built buildings like this, where the practice could continue in private properties. This is now a museum. South Carolina was a commercial center for the plantation economy, and where there were plantations, there were slaves. This crossing here is a very emblematic one in Charleston. It's one of the 4 corners of law, representing the law in 4 different levels. Right here with the city, this is the city hall. Over here, the state level with the old state house, federal level over there with the post office and also the courthouse, and clerical with the church, the oldest surviving religious structure in Charleston. All buildings here are very important, but if I were to highlight one, this one right here. This was the provincial state capital during the colonial times, and with the American Revolution, it was here that the Declaration of Independence was read in public for the first time. Imagine that. Why you look so sad? Come on now, mama. Out of all the pews here inside this church, this one is different. It's a special. Made of mahogany. Some of the important people that sat here: George Washington, the first president of the United States, and Princess Diana. You know that Charleston is actually known as the Holy City, right?
Yeah, I read it.
That's because of the amount of churches here.
Yeah, okay.
So let's start with this one. This is the French Huguenot Church. It's the only French Calvinist congregation in the US. I don't think you can go in here. This is locked. No, can't go in from any side. Let's try the next. Look at this iconic church here, St. Philip's. This is the city's oldest congregation, founded in the 1680s. Actually, it was the first Anglican church south of Virginia. If the church is closed, Let's see the churchyard. Many notable people from the colonial era and post-revolutionary war are buried here.
We just turned 350 years old last week.
Here's another creative name in Charleston, Market Street. Why is that?
Because of the markets.
Because it's a market here. Actually, this is one of the oldest public markets in the entire country. The building's very narrow, but it's long. It goes all the way into the very end. On Fridays and Saturdays, they have a night market here too.
You can go in.
Wow, this is so beautiful, huh? You fully believe that, huh? Beautiful.